All right, the best estimate now is $11 billion and growing. That's how much money has been ripped off by fraudsters from California's unemployment funds, run by the Employment Development Department. DAs around the state have been announcing fraud cases, and the latest is Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzer, who held a press conference today charging a number of suspects, including some murderers, for stealing funds.
Todd, welcome back. Lay this out for us.
Yeah, so we have now announced 3 separate cases, 10 individuals arrested. The typical scheme that you've heard about around the state, where you have somebody on the outside who is coordinating the identities of prison inmates, taking their identity, applying for benefits, then taking the EDD debit cards, cashing out the money, and then putting some of that kickback money onto a prisoner's books as a reward for being involved in the scheme. One of the big things we announced today was a storefront that opened with 2 Vietnamese individuals, both men, who started an unemployment benefits mill and probably processed up to 1,000 fraudulent unemployment benefit applications. When we executed the search warrants, we recovered over $300,000 in cash, and we frozen about $200,000 in their bank accounts. So literally, there was money when we went into their this mobile home that one of them was living in. The money was just flowing out of bags and pockets of clothes. They're like drug dealers, right? They had so much cash of our taxpayer money from the EDD, they didn't even know where to put it.
That's astonishing. And they did this easily? I mean, they did it literally 1,000 times.
It's beyond, well, if you take the amount of money we recovered, say $300,000 in cash, a couple $100,000 in bank accounts that are frozen, let's assume all that came from the $200 to $700 kickback they were getting from each transaction. Then all you have to do is do the math. You're talking about several $1 million in ripoff of the taxpayers. So today I was joined by Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie-Norris. She represents Orange County in the state legislature. She's the oversight committee for the EDD, and she has a hearing tomorrow in Sacramento. And she agrees, and we're both on the same page. This is a massive fraud scheme, and it needs a massive response. I know you've been having different colleagues of mine on your show from different parts of the state, Amory Schubert in Sacramento, Lisa up in Fresno County, Smitten Camp, and we're just befuddled by this. But the fact of the matter is, there's not been a response. And hey, listen, we're opening up the restaurants. That's great. Let's hope we don't do a seesaw, teeter-totter with these restaurant owners and close their restaurants again next week. But the fact of the matter is, huge mistakes have been made. And anybody could apply through their cell phone to get unemployment benefits without question, without scrutiny, without any terms being looked at to see if it was accurate or real. And it wasn't. And all this money was just dispersed. By Bank of America.
I don't know how much detail you have on hand, but you have these 3 guys here, Bahina, Galindo, Rodriguez. Did they have 1,000 separate identities that they used to get the money sent to them? And were those real people?
Yeah, so Bahina she is a parolee, okay? So she was out on the outside. She was on parole. Her brother's in prison. And they used their identities to get all these fake EDD cards, and then she would process them through the ATM in order to take cash out. Luckily, just think about this, right?
Was it 1,000 separate names of real people?
No, the 1,000 individuals. Case. That's the 2 Vietnamese individuals in Little Saigon. Those were the ones that used potentially 1,000 different individuals, mostly the elderly. They were advertising on Vietnamese radio and other periodicals to get them to come in to claim these unemployment benefits. So yes,
they opened up something called Win Social Services, like a little company.
Yeah, that's their last name, and so they. In fact, I was there when we executed the search warrant. And it's just a storefront. It's right there in Garden Grove in the Little Saigon area. So, they literally opened up this store purposely for that purpose. But back on John's point on Bahina Galindo Rodriguez, I mean, can you imagine, right? She's a parolee. Went to prison for carjacking. Her brother is in prison. She is processing this. You got 3 strikers. Guy who's doing 110 years to life in prison, but he's claiming on an unemployment application that he lost his job. Right? I mean, you already know the scheme. Your listeners and you have been talking about this ad nauseum. The question is, what is the governor's office going to do about this? I mean, that was what we had the press conference today, not only to announce the charges, but what the hell are you going to do from a statewide basis to get this money back?
They didn't want to do the matching so they could see if somebody was in prison at the time they're filing for unemployment. They didn't do that at the beginning, right? Isn't that what led to this?
No, not right. They implemented the cross-matching in October. They froze benefits to try to get a handle on it. But we still have untold amounts, right? The auditor that came in claims that there's about $10 billion in fraud associated with about $140 billion worth of unemployment benefits being distributed. So the question is, are we going to ever see this money? I mean, right now you have every DA, right? You have 58 different district attorneys like me processing these cases. I filed charges in 3 major cases, but with 10 individuals. The amount of resources that it took to put these cases together over the last 3 months was intense and immense.
Shouldn't the Attorney General be doing this too?
I think what I've asked the Assemblywoman tomorrow at her hearing is, you've got the legislature has to designate with the governor's office a key law enforcement agent on a statewide basis. To me, it makes perfect sense for the Attorney General to take the lead and then direct the DAs like me to help coordinate with the statewide effort. But for me to be doing my own little thing, and Lisa, Anne-Marie Schubert in Sacramento, Vern Pearson up in the north, it makes no sense for us to be doing this on an individual basis. We'll never get to the bottom of all the schemes.
All right. Gotta go.
Thank you very
thank
much.
You
we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Todd Spitzer. And I like his quote from Todd talking about those Vietnamese guys that opened that company and filed 1,000 claims. They exploited COVID to make money. Then they took advantage of COVID, and they're out on 0 bail.
Oh, too much COVID in the prison. So
that's right. So they're out on bail. No bail. There is no bail.
There are no laws.